In Argentina, judicial authorities ordered the release of those arbitrarily detained during teachers' protests over salaries and against the governor's constitutional reform in Jujuy. In Russia, the armed forces neutralized 28 Ukrainian drones trying to attack the territory of Crimea. And in Israel, thousands continue to protest against the controversial judicial reform being pushed by Benjamin Netanyahu's far-right government. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Monday, authorities released 9 people of those arbitrarily detained in the June 20th demonstrations in Jujuy, northwest of Argentina. After the important mobilization on Friday both in Jujuy and in Buenos Aires, the capital of the country, the justice system ordered the release of those who were detained in the prison of Alto Comedero. Around midnight, Santiago Zamora, Walter Armando Puca, Martin Abad, Mayuk Mamani, Dan Liborio, Hector Jerónimo, Gabino Cruz, Darío Donaire, and Jose Ivan Blacut were released on the orders of Judge Rodolfo Fernandez after a hearing with defense lawyers of the detainees. At least 5 people died and 11 are missing as a result of an avalanche that occurred early Tuesday morning in Quetame, in the department of Cundinamarca in the central region of Colombia. The governor of the department, Nicolas Garcia, informed that the heavy rains caused the avalanche at 1 a.m. local time, and due to the flash floods, several houses in the sector were affected. The police and the risk management unit are on the scene carrying out rescues, mobilizing residents and assisting the injured. The governor added that among the missing are several minors still unidentified. And in Belgium, the third EU CELAC summit is set to continue this Tuesday. The first day ended with calls to strengthen integration, fight climate change, and reform the financial system. During the opening ceremony, the pro-tempore president of CELAC, Ralph Gonsalves, explained that the summit has the possibility of advancing an agenda to address current problems. For his part, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez highlighted the importance of renewing cooperation between Europe and the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. In this sense, the Argentine head of state, Alberto Fernandez, emphasized that the objective of CELAC is to strengthen the integration of Latin American and Caribbean countries with Europe. The president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, stressed the need for the EU CELAC summit to evaluate the current global architecture, which does not contribute to preventing the migratory crisis and does not prevent the independence and climate deterioration. The summit continues on Tuesday, where leaders will continue discussions with the aim of reviewing cooperation relations. The president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, during her intervention in the EU CELAC summit, condemned the United States blockade against Cuba and asked to make a joint declaration against it.
EU CELAC summit must adopt a resolution which calls for the end of the blockade against Cuba. The United Nations have condemned this as an arbitrary measure, obsolete, which destines a whole people to a situation of sacrifice where they could achieve a high standard of living.
During the third EU CELAC summit, Brazilian President Lula da Silva called for a roadmap to reduce inequalities in the existing relations between both regions.
Cooperation between the two regions should reflect the realities and priorities of both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. For Latin America and the Caribbean region, this could be translated in a clear-cut focus in reducing inequalities and the eradication of hunger and poverty. We will have to find a roadmap to overcome the asymmetries that exist between social and economic development. Initiatives of mobilizing resources and investments are welcome, and they should also include technology transfers and a true integration of the production chain. We need a partnership that would end the International Labor Division that condemns Latin America and the Caribbean region to supply raw materials and migrant a labor force that is badly paid and discriminated. The convergence between our regions should not be restricted to the interdependence of our economies. It should also happen in the field of our values.
In this context, the leaders of Latin American and European Union also participated in a political dialogue meeting on Venezuela. The meeting, which was held on the sidelines of the EU Select Summit, was attended by the presidents of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, Brazil, Luis Ignacio da Silva, and Colombia, Gustavo Petro, in addition to French President Emmanuel Macron and EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Joseph Borrell. The Venezuelan government was represented by Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, while Gerardo Blyde attended on behalf of the Venezuelan opposition. During the meeting, which lasted more than 2 hours, the senior officials encouraged the parties to build a roadmap for the elections to be held in 2024. Prior to this meeting, the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, ratified his country's willingness to support political dialogue in Venezuela.
And the intention is to reacclimate a process that will allow a democratic agreement to be reached through dialogue between the different factions of the Venezuelan society. The Colombian territory has always been willing to dialogue. In fact, Venezuela is the guarantor of the two peace processes that are on the way and has also been a territorial space for dialogue. In that sense, we are willing to make room for a dialogue on Venezuela.
We now welcome our special envoy, Jorge Gestoso, who brings us the latest updates from Brussels.
The final day of the summit between CELAC and the European Union here in Brussels, and the key issue of the whole event is the restart of the economic relationship between the two sides, the bilateral economic relationship to be pushed by the European Union. Extremely worried European Union about the presence of China in the region. And just to give a couple of information, we could say that in 2022, even though the European Union increased the commerce with our region on 25%, China historically has increased it in 20 times, and therefore the European Union do not want to see that that relationship throughout the years is clearly bringing the European Union in a situation that is absolutely in the backyard. So much so that basically is promising a huge amount of investment, a huge amount of quote-unquote cooperation in order to entice the proximity of Latin America to Europe. And in the meantime, they're trying to push in this final document that is going to be announced at the end of the day, is trying to push Latin America to take sides in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, something that most definitely Latin America refused very, very deeply, because they say we are a region of peace and we are promoting the solution of all the conflicts by the diplomatic and by the peaceful means, and not the use of force and the military means, as they believe that is the position of Europe. So in that document, final document tonight, is going to be also reflected the concern of Latin America about slavery. 60 million human beings, according to Delcy Rodriguez, the Vice President of Venezuela, has been brought from Africa to our region, and in the final document, Latin America is most definitely requiring reparations at all levels on that. The European Union want to put, again, some clauses about Ukraine. It seems that could reach sort of an agreement, a tentative agreement, that they're going to be mentioned, the solution by the diplomatic means, but not at all the word Ukraine. So all those details, the final economic and bilateral relationship is going to be ironed from here until the end of this final session, and also the documents that is talking about that relations regarding peace. We'll get back to you now.
Thank you, Jorge, for the latest info on the third EU Select Summit. We will now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The People's Summit closes in Belgium with objective focusing on meeting the needs for peace and integration among the countries of the world. During Monday afternoon, the debates and meetings addressed decolonization and depatriarchalization. Speakers also debated about the ecological future, migration, and the problems left by the capitalist model at world level. Different heads of state, such as the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, Gustavo Petro of Colombia, Luis Arce of Bolivia, and the Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, intervened to address several issues affecting the Latin American people. At the People's Summit Brussels 2023, held in parallel to the Union-European Select Summit, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel expressed his satisfaction in participating in the event and also said that the People's Summit is the right place to share ideas and it is diverse, open, and truly participatory.
We're certainly very happy to share with you this People's Summit in 2023. We're here because this is a space where we can all share our thoughts and concerns. This is a place where people reunite to discuss the main problems in Latin America and the Caribbean. We are here in this meeting because here is where the people in Latin America talk.
In his speech at the People's Summit, the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, referred to the climate crisis facing the world and highlighted the role of science in the fight against climate change.
Humanity is going through now a very serious environmental crisis, a crisis that 10 or 15 years ago we could not even conceive yet. But the science has talked, and we know now that it's a crisis thanks to the scientists, not to the politics. Once again, it's the science who is showing the truth, which is that we need to protect our planet, and is also the only one who is leading us through the correct path.
In her speech at the People's Summit, the Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, highlighted the courage of the Venezuelan people for standing up to the imperialist blockade.
All countries in Europe and the rest of the world know that in 2019, a very complicated process began against the Venezuelan people and the Venezuelan sovereignty. They have tried to destabilize and disunite people in Venezuela, but we have stand against that. They have tried to intervene in our internal affairs, in our territory.
The Russian armed forces neutralized 28 Ukrainian drones trying to attack the territory of Crimea. According to a ministerial declaration, 17 of the devices were destroyed using anti-craft defense, and the other 11 were eliminated through electronic warfare. The governor of Crimea, Sergei Aksyonov, stated that there were no victims nor material damages and thanked the military for their rigor and coordination in their actions. This is the second attack in less than 48 hours carried out by Kiev against the peninsula after bombing the bridge that connects it with the Russian province of Krasnodar, described by President Vladimir Putin as a terrorist attack that would not go unanswered. TeleSUR English launches some videos on demand site for you to go and revisit our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Just go to the top left corner of our website homepage and click on the video option to access our VOD platform. We will now take a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. On Tuesday, hundreds of thousands of Israelis took to the streets in another day of resistance against the controversial judicial reform being pushed by Benjamin Netanyahu's far-right government. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered in Habima Square in Tel Aviv and closed several streets. Meanwhile, police confirmed 15 arrests. The mobilization ratifies the rejection of the judicial reform promoted by the Prime Minister's government with the support of ultra-Orthodox and ultra-right groups, which, according to representatives of various civil organizations, is an attack on the balance of power and consequently on democracy. According to polls, a majority of Israelis questioned the government's initiative, which would restrict the Supreme Court's ability to strike down laws by allowing Parliament to legislate bills challenged by the court. On Monday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan arrived in Saudi Arabia at the start of a three-state Gulf tour as he looks to attract foreign investment in his country's ailing economy. Erdogan landed in the Red Sea city of Jeddah to meet King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman before heading for the United Arab Emirates and Qatar later this week. The visit is the second of the Turkish president to Saudi Arabia since a rapprochement. The ties between the two countries were strained by the 2018 murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the kingdom's Istanbul consulate. The two countries will sign several accords during Erdogan's trip as Ankara looks to non-Western partners for financial support, a senior Saudi official told AFP. On Monday, 12 people, including 7 members of one family, were killed in Cairo when a residential building in Egypt's capital collapsed, the public prosecution and state media said. A statement from the public prosecution said the building in the city's Hadajek al-Kuba district completely collapsed. Civil defense workers pulled out 12 people, among them an injured woman, the statement added. The statement also said the woman and 2 residents gave testimony suggesting that the collapse was caused by a resident who recently knocked down walls in his first-floor flat, despite neighbors asking him not to do so. The prosecution ordered the arrest of the building's owner, the contractor in charge of the works, and one of his employees for questioning. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad on Tuesday announced that reservists will be demobilized from the 1st of September. Bashar al-Assad stressed most of the territory is free of terrorism and the country is on the road to stability. In his capacity as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Armed Forces, Syrian President signed the order to demobilize non-commissioned officers and reservist soldiers. In the beginning of their armed conflict, the Syrian army deployed thousands of reservists to its ranks to confront radical groups supported by regional and international powers, but with the liberation of most of the territory from terrorism and the consolidation of stability, the president ordered their demobilization. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.